So welcome everyone to the course, The Buddhist Path of Awakening. Let's bow in. So we're working our way through the 3 volumes of The Profound Treasury of the Ocean of Dharma by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And these are a digest, these volumes, of talks that Trungpa Rinpoche gave over the course of about 15 years. Every year he took 150 to 250 or so students away in the fall to various locations each year, a different one, many years. And the 3 months were divided up into the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana sections, Hinayana being the beginning section, Mahayana the middle, and Vajrayana the last, the advanced, Tantrayana, Mantrayana, Vajrayana. We are on the volume 2 of the Profound Treasury, which is a digest of the talks given in the second section of seminary, Mahayana, over the 15 years. And we have been working our way through this, and we are now covering the sections on the Lojong teachings. These are training the mind. These teachings were brought to Tibet in the 12th century by the great Indian teacher Atisha Dibankara. And those teachings were, again, they were digested by one of his students in particular, and some others as well who participated in this, into 59 slogans. And we are working our way through these slogans. These are the Lojong, or training the mind slogans. These 59 are organized into 7 points. Today we are covering point 6, disciplines of mind training. These are short slogans. We're going to be doing quite a few of them today. And we're going to start. Barry is going to lead off. Sir?
Okay, here we are at point 6. Just a second, I have to get this. All right. Point 6, disciplines of mind training. Also, these 16 slogans of point 6 relate to the prajna, which is the 6th paramita. They kind of go along like that. And the disciplines of these slogans are disciplines to apply in the conduct of daily life. So, for the most part, real world post-meditation rather than on the cushion. And they're all facilitated with prajna. So, he begins, actually, before we get into the first slogan, that once more we are trying to crack our ego, which is, remember, the one point that all dharmas agree on, this time by means of prajna, the 6th paramita. In the Mahayana, as in the Hinayana, prajna is regarded as the sword that cuts the bondage of ego. And he goes on, the way to develop prajna is through vipassana practice. So the prajna of vipassana is what realizes egolessness. And this is what we're doing when we practice shamatha vipassana awareness meditation, by sitting with the eyes open, witnessing our thoughts, and then using this sort of prajna to cut any attachment to them. We're using our intelligence to recognize thoughts for what they are: mental activity, stories. Each time we do this, the bondage of ego is cut in that moment. And by doing this, we then begin to develop more understanding of our situation. Things become more workable, more spacious, and the less fixated we are, the wider our field of vision is. We become aware of much more of everything that is going on. Everything is going in our ever-changing immediate experience. And just a moment. Okay. Excuse me. So, and also we sit with eyes open so that we are not separated from real life. And this is how prajna is developed with Vipassana practice, by becoming more aware, more awake to everything. He goes on, by means of Vipassana, you are sharpening your intelligence in order to work with yourself so that whatever occurs in your life is governed by prajna. That's being fully present, awake. And then ultimately, he says, when you reach the point where you are not dwelling on anything connected with ego, Atman or soul, the activities described in the Lojong text begin to manifest and to permeate your life. So these Lojong slogans are something we can use and contemplate in our daily lives and activity, and they're also something that we will naturally manifest as we become more realized as we progress along the Bodhisattva path. Yeah, I'm going to mention a little plug here for walking meditation, because walking meditation is useful in helping to take the formal sitting meditative practice into the real world. I see it as a kind of like meditation in daily life on training wheels, and I encourage you to do it. So, the first slogan that we're covering, number 23, always abide by the three basic principles. He says this slogan is based on maintaining the three basic principles: keeping the refuge and Bodhisattva vows, refraining from outrageous actions, and developing patience. And the first, keeping the refuge and Bodhisattva vows, is, as you would expect, straightforward. He says it is quite straightforward. You should keep these promises completely. Now, I'm reminded that, and John, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this material was collected from talks that were given to an audience of people who had taken these vows. Whether you've taken these vows or not, bringing this slogan to mind is an opportunity to take a moment and reaffirm your commitment to the Dharma, to the teachings, and then your commitment to acting for the benefit of others, which is the refuge and the Bodhisattva vows. You may even ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now for the benefit of all sentient beings? The next part of the slogan where to go? Refraining from outrageous actions. Put simply, don't get carried away. He says, when you practice Lojong, you realize that you should put others before yourself, so you try to act in a self-sacrificing manner. Good. However, and then he goes on and points out how this may become exhibitionism, that you can become carried away with exhibiting your practice, maybe making an ostentatious display of your practice. Like, I'm going to go do Lojong now, so don't do that. And the last part of this first slogan is developing patience. The third principle, he says, is developing patience. There is often some confusion about patience. You can be patient with your friends, but you cannot be patient with your enemies. That approach is a form of personality cult, the cult of yourself, which is not a good idea. The point being that the Bodhisattva principle is acting for the benefit of all beings, not just those who you deem worthy, that we are patient with any person we encounter. And Tonglen can be very helpful with this. It can be good practice in Tonglen, to do Tonglen for someone who is difficult or a downright bad person, and also for yourself. Because after all, each one of us is just one more sentient being. So don't play favorites. And Pema actually had an interesting take on this, which is, she says, it is the same as cultivating non-aggression. Patience and non-aggression are basically encouragement to wait. Okay. The next slogan, 24, change your attitude but remain natural. This slogan applies to the attempt to impose your power and authority on others. Ordinarily, we think of ourselves first. That is the attitude to change. The Bodhisattva path is about putting others before oneself. Remaining natural means not trying to demonstrate this change to others. In other words, don't take a victory lap when you offer your seat to someone else on the bus. And Trellig Rinpoche puts it simply, don't talk about others. Wait a moment. Nope, I got the wrong one. Trellig says Lojong practice is about transforming the way we view the world, not changing the way we present ourselves to it. There you go. Slogan 25, don't talk about injured limbs. Now, injured limbs are faults or defects that you see in the behavior of others. Trump says, because of your arrogance and aggression, you might like to talk about other people's defects as a way of building yourself up. The point of the slogan is to not do so. And he says, instead of regarding a fault you may see as an ugly defect, you could recognize that it is just a person's response to reality. Now, this slogan seems to be about actually talking about others, gossiping, ragging on someone, complaining that so-and-so does or doesn't do this or that. Don't do it. The next slogan is, don't ponder others. And this, he says that a practice that engaging in this practice and putting effort into it can bring up feelings of superiority, comparing ourselves to others. He says, you feel that having gone through so much effort in the practice makes you more worthy than others. Or simply being irritated by the way someone does something can hook you. He says, when somebody does something to you that violates your principles, you keep picking on that. The point of this slogan is simple, don't do that. And Trellig Rinpoche is very simple. He says, mind your own business. And he also, Trellig Rinpoche, points out that this is similar to the previous slogan, but relates to the twisted logic we apply to others rather than what we say about them. And now, slogan 27, work through the greatest defilements first. Well, whatever is your greatest obstacle, whether it is aggression, pride, arrogance, jealousy, or what have you, you should work with that first. The idea, he says, is to work on the highlights that come up rather than just regarding them as junk. Whatever problem arises in your state of mind, you should work on it simply, directly, and straightforwardly. So with slogan 25, we have, don't talk about injured limbs. This is, we notice aggression in the way that we talk about others and stop that. With the next slogan, 26, don't ponder others, we find that arrogance in our thoughts. And with this slogan, we work directly with the thoughts, the feelings, the kleshas that lead to that kind of arrogance. And from my own experience, I know I related to this one, that when I become aware of a klesha, of something like that coming up, especially if I'm familiar with it, my tendency is to just want to toss it aside. Oh, that again. Toss it aside with a topping of guilt and a little bit of self-criticism sprinkle on top just for spice. But this slogan says to work with that on the spot. Find yourself starting to have these kinds of experiences come up in response to something. Don't just push it aside. Look at it. And he goes on, when you have a problem, you should work with that problem. All means should be applied in trying to tame it, but you should not try to achieve a certain result. And this will come up again in the next slogan, actually. Abandon any hope of fruition. Another straightforward slogan. In the Bodhidharma, we are not looking for temporary revelation, and we're not saying that you have to achieve something. According to this slogan, any pursuit of this life's happiness, joy, fame, wisdom, as well as the hope of attaining some state of glorious liberation in the life hereafter could be regarded as a problem. I mean, after all, striving to attain a certain state or experience is really just another dream of the future. So relax, stick with the present. There's plenty to deal with here. Slogan 29, which is just about the last one I'm getting to, but not quite, and that is abandon poisonous food. This is a very powerful slogan, he says. It means that no matter what practice you do, if that practice is based on your own personal achievement, it is spiritual materialism. And spiritual materialism is actually a big topic that I'm not going to try to expand on now. This one I spent some time with, and my take on it is that, taken literally, nourishing food goes bad and becomes poisonous. And likewise, thoughts and actions in our practice can go bad, become poisonous when tainted with ego. When I, as compared to other, is a way that good practice can go bad and become poisonous. It can become a way of then differentiating yourself from others, holding yourself superior to, and that's no longer good practice. And finally, don't be so predictable. Now, Trungpa Rinpoche calls this a difficult and enigmatic slogan. He presents three interpretations from venerable teachers, and our own venerable teacher has a different presentation. I spent some time with this slogan, and teased out what I see as like the common threads. So this is my take. That in a nutshell, this means don't get carried along by momentum. Pay attention and be awake to what is happening and respond with skillful means. Look beyond a person's role or category they may fit into, and the same with situations. We tend to rely on habitual behavior, responding automatically. There can be an expectation of, just from looking at a person, of who they are and what is going to happen. And categorizing a person or a situation can blind one to the fullness of what's unfolding in the moment. So opportunities may be missed, misunderstandings created. And this is where prajna comes in, because prajna here, as a way of responding on the spot, a fresh take. Prajna as clear seeing, clear, direct, undistracted knowing. It's like that moment in meditation when you see that you are thinking. In that moment, before any commentary begins, you know exactly what's going on. So, to me, the slogan is about being awake, bringing that kind of fresh take to a situation, and that may lead to you having an unpredictable response and possibly a surprising outcome. And now it's time for John.
Thank you, Barry. So we're on, I think, slogan 31. Don't malign others, is that correct? Barry?
Yes, it is.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to recommend these slogans. It's difficult to keep the meaning of the particular slogans in mind. This is what I find. So here's what I use. I use this deck and pick a slogan every day or so. And then if I don't understand it, I go to the text. And I use the Trungpa Rinpoche text myself. I find it, overall, it's the best. Either from the Profound Treasury, these chapters, or there's the book, Training the Mind, from which these chapters are largely drawn. And either one is fine to understand the slogan that you've just picked if you don't already. There are two ways, as Barry has said, I'm going to just go over this again, to understand the purpose of these slogans. One is, you might say, aspirational, and the other is immediate. The aspirational one might be, depending on the individual, that these slogans are based in an understanding of emptiness. Really what they're describing is a way of seeing the world through the lens, or in the world of shunyata, which is the world of reality, the absence of the twofold egolessness of I and other, especially I, which comes first. It's really, they are descriptions of understanding and behavior when we see this world and ourselves through the lens of egolessness, which is a very profound change in the way that confused beings see the world. Usually we see it in terms of I. How can I be happy? How can I be good? How can I avoid pain? Whatever it may be. And if we look at these slogans from that point of view, sort of the ordinary point of view, the moralistic point of view, then they become moralistic. They become descriptions of how we might behave if we were a so-called better person. This is a much lower level way of working with the slogans, and it's much less inspiring. The way to work with them and the way to achieve this kind of understanding and insight only comes through the practice of Vipassana meditation. Vipassana, this open-minded meditation. And the hallmark of Vipassana meditation is the development of prajna. Prajna means utterly clear seeing and knowing. Seeing things and oneself as they actually are, devoid of conceptual overlay of any kind. And it only happens when we begin to come back into this present moment and rest our awareness here. And then prajna begins to function more and more, the more we practice. And the world transforms. It transforms from an I-other problem, which is the way we usually see the world, into a very fresh, real, constant appearing and arising in which I is no longer regarded as being real, important, the linchpin of our existence. Instead, there's a constantly new appearance. And then these descriptions, these slogans, become descriptive of the way in which we might behave and see the world through that lens. Before that, since most of us are aspiring to this, to egolessness, to the understanding of emptiness, they become injunctions, prescriptions for how we might try to see the world and see in which, and they also become revelations about the sort of the corrupt way or the tainted way in which we understand the world and the way in which we move through it. What I recommend is keeping either a deck of cards like this, or even better, the actual text of the Training the Mind book, or the sections from the Profound Treasury that we're studying at hand. And when you begin to practice, or just before you practice in the morning, picking a slogan at random. And if you don't remember what it's about, read some of the description. And in that way, they begin to animate your life, either aspirationally, as inspiring your intention, or as a description of what you're actually seeing, or what you might see. And in that way, they can be incredibly inspirational. So to go on, these slogans that we're doing today are really the relative bodhicitta slogans. They have to do with the phenomenal world. Vipassana meditation, which we all do together, we did it today, can be done on the cushion, but its real application is in your daily life. As you're walking down the street, as you're talking to the people who inhabit your lives, that we bring this clear seeing, this vipassana, to bear. We come out of our dreams and we just see. We see our thoughts. We come back from dreaming. We see the thoughts and we see these people in daily life. This is where the slogans begin to really come alive. They are descriptions of how we might see the world through the lens of Vipassana. Simple, ultimate simplicity. It's the awareness that we already have, this space of awareness here, in which arise the six knowables. So, slogan number 31, don't malign others. Pretty simple. When you say bad things about others, you're showing off your own virtue and your own intelligence. And you think that your virtues, he says, seem stronger when the virtues of other people are lessened. You compare yourself to others, especially enemies, in terms of meditation, learning, whatever, saying that they're inferior to you, that you are better. So don't do this. Don't disparage or malign people in that way. And in fact, if you're living in the awareness of Vipassana, much less egolessness, this isn't even relevant, the idea of maligning other people. Instead, you want to work with them. Don't wait in ambush. That's slogan number 32. That means, when you've got an enemy and you're sort of waiting for the opportunity to attack when they're weak. And haven't we all done this? Sometimes you might pretend to be sympathetic, biding your time until it's the right moment. Even advising them as a friend, that's really hypocritical. And then you attack them in that disguise. He says that is a bandit's approach, waiting in ambush. Don't do it. Haven't we all from time to time? Slogan 33, don't bring things to a painful point, means don't humiliate other people. A bodhisattva encourages people on the path, so don't discourage them or slow their progress so that you can stay ahead of them. We're always thinking about, where am I on the path relative to so-and-so, relative to other people? Am I advanced? Am I retarded? Whatever I might be. So he says, do the opposite. Come along behind others. It's a very kind thing to do. Slogan number 34. This is very similar to the last. Don't transfer the ox's load to the cow. Yeah. And since you exist, he says, there are going to be problems, and you don't want to transfer your heavy burdens to others, especially to someone weaker than you. This is based on wanting to pass on any burdens or problems to others, especially others who can't complain because they're in an inferior position to you, someone you can order about. This could be children, could be servants, could be people who are just in some inferior position to us in one way or another. We can invite people to be our helpers, but we don't pass the buck to them. So don't transfer the ox's load to the cow. Don't try to be the fastest. And this is having to do with competing with others. In this instance, you regard whatever you're involved in, it might be the Buddhist path or something else, as a race. And it becomes a game. And you are trying to win. He says there is no seed of benevolence and gentleness in you when you practice in this way. So this slogan, the point is trying not to try to achieve fame, honor, or distinction through one's practice. You're not ready to accumulate or collect disciples yet. Slogan 36, don't act with a twist. He says, this is a sort of don't practice deception. He says here, since you think that you're going to get the best in any case, you might as well volunteer for the worst. Makes you look good. To make yourself look virtuous and egoless. For instance, you might take the blame for something in order to get admiration from other people. The idea of this slogan is to drop the attitude of looking for personal benefits from practice, either as an immediate or long-term result. We keep this as a theme. Don't make gods into demons, is slogan 37. What it means is, because of your intention to show off, Dharma becomes anti-Dharma. Even if your achievement is legitimate, right, and good, if you regard it as a way of proving yourself or building up your ego, no, it's not good. These things are so subtle, and we so easily fall into self-aggrandizement. And the way out of it, again and again, is to come present. Vipassana meditation. Finally, slogan 38, don't seek others' pain as limbs of your own happiness. It's the same theme again. Don't hope that somebody else suffers so that you can benefit. You might know, he says, that if another dies, you will inherit. Don't wish for or dream about that. Don't wish for someone else to suffer so that you can benefit. The point is that you should not build your happiness on the suffering of others. So again and again, the point of all these slogans is that we're beginning to step into a very different world. The world of egolessness, the world in which I am no longer the central reference point, the constant echo of I. And the only way to do that is by practicing awareness, Vipassana meditation. We do it on the cushion. That's kind of a lab experience, as though we were in a chemistry lab. And then we take it out into the world and do it whenever we can remember. In any situation, we come back to awareness, out of our dreams, out of our thoughts. What these slogans are is they're enjoining us to see these corrupt, ego-driven thoughts and let them go and come back into egoless awareness to the extent that we are able. So they're constant reminders. I think I'm going to stop there and we could have a discussion. Anybody? Anybody have any favorite slogans?
All right, I'll start just for the sake of starting. I'm blown away by this chapter and by these sets of slogans. I just love how one transitions into the next, and it's almost like each one is really just setting itself up for the next one. You know, with the last one being, you know, spend time in the morning, spend time in the evening, contemplating pretty much all, you know, 18 slogans that came before that. And it's really interesting. I especially love the transition between uh, don't say bad things about other people, don't, you know, actually verbalize them. And then the next one is don't ponder any bad things. Like first he tells us, or it tells us, whatever, not to say bad things about others. And then it says, don't even think about it. Don't spend time dwelling on it, you know, and if you catch yourself doing it, just stop dwelling on it. Focus on something else. It's it's great. I love it. Thanks. Mm, mm. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, John.
John, could I ask, are the cards, I think,
Nikki,
how much-
I can't
I
hear
think,
you.
hold on, let me get rid of,
I
is
think
that
you
better?
you need to be closer.
Oh, okay. Is that better? If I cut my visual, usually it's better.
Well, give it a try.
Okay. I had a question about the cards. Am I thinking, Pema Chodron actually, I mean, you can buy them online, right? It comes in a box. A friend of mine had some, and for some reason I'm thinking Pema made those available. Um, where can we get the cards?
Yeah, there's a box that Pema has, it's called the Compassion Box, and it has a book in there as well on doing Tonglen, I think.
It's on Shambhala's publications. Yeah.
But also, if you go to the Nalanda Translation Committee website, they sell the cards too. And then I think you can just buy the cards. That's what this deck is. This comes from the Nalanda Translation Committee in Halifax.
Are
And they were
they doing
huh?
the cards?
Question?
Are they called the Lojong?
They would be called Lojong slogans. I don't know what they're exactly called on that website. It's Lojong slogans, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And what you'll find is that even though, I mean, I've studied this so many times, and yet I pull out a card and I can't remember what it means. So I have to go to the book, Train in the Three Difficulties, and I need to go to the book to remind myself what they are. And you'll
Also, the cards from the Pema's little compassion box kit also have a brief commentary on the back of each one.
yeah. Yeah.
Tony Bright.
Hi, John, and everyone else. They also have I got my set at the Samadhi store up at Karmacholing, and they're very good at sending them out to people. I was just reminiscing on the fact that many years ago, someone I was close to had bought a calligraphy by Chogyam Trungpa and asked me if I would frame it for them. It was Larry Teitelbaum is who it was, and I said, sure. So I framed it for him and gave it back to him. And I said, what does it mean? And he said, don't wait in ambush. And I said, what does that mean? He said, you'll find out. And I found out. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
That's my snippet for this evening.
Yeah, the Samadhi store in it's in outside of Carmichaeling. Is it in Vermont?
It's in Barnet. It's in Barnet.
It's in Barnet.
Yeah, they have them there, and they're very shipping, and their prices are good. They have a lot of different things.
They have a lot of wonderful things. Yeah, if you need meditation
Samadhi,
cushions.
I think it's Samadhi cushions, maybe is what they call themselves.
Yep.
They have a lot of supplies. Good store. Thanks, Tony. Laura.
I really like the slogan about don't transfer the ox's load to the cow. Thought that was really descriptive of what's happened in a lot of different industries, where to save money, they give responsibilities that are generally require somebody more trained to somebody in their 20s, like exploiting the whole labor class and young people. And I experienced that in my workplace. And there was in my workplace in particular, which was a research facility, and we had a lot of people who were kind of in between college and graduate school, and giving them a lot of responsibility, and then getting mad at them that they didn't have the judgment or the training to pull it off. So when I saw that, I was like, yes, don't do that.
Yeah. It says, yeah, based on wanting to pass on any burdens or problems to others, especially others who can't complain because they're in an inferior position to you, someone you can order about. Oh, yeah. All the problems of ego. Haven't we been there? I encourage you. Do anybody have some more favorite ones?
I like the one, but I can't quite remember it, about how can I be good and avoid pain? Which one was that?
Not sure.
That was what I wrote down, but I'm not sure which one. Barry, what do you think? Which one? Anyways, yeah, I missed it. Something about revelation of the clear seeing, but it's like all these layers of stuff and explanations and trying to cover up. Very illuminating. Thank you. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, John.
If you're going to come tomorrow night, I'll give you an exercise, which is to come with one or two favorites, one or two that you really like, and explain why. I like what he said anyhow about this
Oh,
one.
John, excuse me, you got to be careful not to rub your papers against the microphone in the laptop. That was really loud.
Sorry. This one, I just like what he said about at the end of this one, work through the greatest defilements first. He says, you don't want to work with the chicken shit. You want to work with the chicken itself. Yeah. But that takes a tremendous amount of prajna, which means an ability to see oneself, in this instance, an ability to see oneself clearly, and one's games and one's self-deceptions, the way in which we exert and exercise our egotism.
Barry and John, I just wanted to say one thing. I hope my connection is good. I think it is. But the cat kind of has my tongue a little bit, because I just feel like I'm just floored by how true all of these are, and how long ago they were true. I mean, they were true for people, 700 AD, and even, really in the time of the Buddha. I mean, I just am like, how long has this been going on? So it just keeps occurring to me, and there's so much truth, and I just see myself in every single one, and it's so embarrassing, and it's just like so humbling. And I am kind of like I don't have much words sometimes to just express how they just catch me. But I'll be thinking of some favorites and some ones that, are really just really speak, all the time. Thank you so much, Barry and John.
I had a comment to that effect, Christy, is it, when I think of, or when I read some of these, they remind me a lot of the Sermon on the Mount in the Bible. And they all also just seem to be really so common sense. Like, I know not to murder, some of this stuff you just know intuitively. I'm kind of wondering why some of them even need to be said, but anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you.
Philip, and Judith have something, I think.
Yeah, John, I can't thank you enough for the what you said about the slogans are about coming from emptiness, from egolessness. That wasn't written out in any of these that, or didn't catch my attention, but that really made a big difference to me because I was feeling like, and I didn't realize it was because I was coming from ego, that it all seemed like, don't do this and naughty, naughty that. and and that was very enlightening to the comment about coming from not from ego, but from egolessness and from emptiness, from shunyata. That was just great. Thank you. And the one about don't be so predictable. It seems to me that the
Whoa, John, be careful.
Sorry.
Okay.
He ends up on the don't be so predictable with you need to give up your long memory of antagonism. Whoa, that was a that was a terrific one, but I don't see that it follows so germanely from don't be so predictable. I think it's more about harboring grudges and looking for Harry, were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, I was going to respond to that if you're done.
Yeah, I'd like you to.
Okay. Yeah, that don't be so predictable means harboring a long-term grudge. That would be a predictable response to some situation.
Right.
Instead, take a look at that. Take a fresh look. What is this grudge? And take a fresh look at the situation, and don't do the predictable thing, which would be to then seek revenge, for instance.
Yeah.
To me, that was one of my favorites. Because I saw that as becoming really fully present to what's actually going on now, because so much of what we do is kind of on autopilot.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It just seemed to me they were two separate things. I mean, don't be so predictable can apply to a lot of things, but where he ends up with it is giving up your long memory of antagonism.
I think it cuts both ways. That we tend to we favor people who we feel are for us, who are good for us, and we bear a long-term grudge for someone who might have hurt us. And this is very predictable. It's sort of the way ego works.
Yeah.
If I might say something, I think the slogan also has to do not only with grudges, but just an opportunity to look at our habitual tendencies of like our daily routine in some ways is, you could say, an ego protector. So if you're not like just habitually falling into the same patterns of thought, of bodily motion and so forth, but mix things up, then an opportunity arises where of that unpredictability, like if you look back at Trimpe's life and all the interactions with students, one of the things they commented was that like they had no idea where he was coming from or where he was going. It just spontaneously manifested. So it's an encouragement to be spontaneous as well as like, just don't go around insulting and thinking this person has done you wrong, which is just one flavor of habitual patterns.
Yeah, I thought it applied to habitual patterns more. Don't be so predictable, in a more general way, and was, as you say, in favor of spontaneity and many other things. But I'm sure glad he ended where he did, because I needed that kick in the pants.
Well, am I off mute?
Well, you can go ahead.
I just like to add to that. I mean, you're predictable because your actions are based in the past. Like if you're playing a game of poker, what you do is predictable because it's what you've done before. And if you're holding a grudge, it's predictable because you are remembering something that happened to you, and instead of being in the moment, you're back there in the past. And somebody else can say, "Oh, I know he's going to do that because look at what happened to him," and so he's going to hit back. So that's predictable. You're unpredictable when you are only in the present because you're immediately spontaneous to what's happening. And since things are always changing, your responses are always changing. So it's like another admonition to always be in the moment, responding to what's happening in the moment, and not responding to what's happened in the past or what your memories are or what your stories are, but just what's happening right then. And it strikes me that all these slogans are like that. They're all like descriptions of different ways that the ego can respond. It's like they're making a tally of all the different ways that the ego might respond. And each one is, don't do that. Don't respond that way, because that's ego. That's putting yourself first. That's criticizing other people because that makes you better. That's getting ahead of other people instead of pushing them forward to push. Because it's all categories of ways that the ego responds to affirm its presence. And all these slogans are like ways to just recognize those responses. But it's all about the same thing. It's all about what ego does and how to not do that. So not to be ego. That's my little contribution.
Oh, thank you. Great.
Well, Philip, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's hard to put these into words, but I agree with you 100%. This is all the same thing. It's just sliced and diced a bunch of different ways. And in terms of predictability, the same damn thing has been going on for 2,600 years, right? It's this misperception that we have. It's what we're talking about. Shunyata, or egolessness, or this misperception of reality. As long as there's an I and an other, there are going to be all of these problems, each one teased out and stated this way, that way, this way, that way. The further those two things are apart, the clearer those problems will be. The closer those things are together, the smaller those problems will be, until eventually they disappear when we merge. Ultimately, we're going to absorb the other, or the other is going to absorb us, and we'll finally understand that there is no I and other. So whether it's done through diminution of the ego, or a concept of, how would you say it, oneness or wholeness, or finally there's a perception 2,600 years later that we are not different, we are entirely the same. It's all the same damn thing, as Janis Joplin used to say. It's all the fucking same thing. Same damn thing. 2,600 years, and we still haven't gotten it.
Janice said that?
Not the last part, but that's what she meant.
Yeah.
Fred, do you have your hand up?
Yes. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Great. These slogans for Prajna, they're so practical, and the what Philip was saying, it's something that came up to me before. It's like, this whole thing's a dream, and then we're working with other people within a dream who don't know we're in a dream, and it's like, how the hell you do that? And what keeps coming to my mind is just wake people up. And with this, don't be so predictable. There's a story that Peter Goldfarb told me about Chogyam Trungpa that kind of showed how I don't know, this might be about not being so predictable. They were online for like a movie theater, and he had to go to the bathroom, and he just took a piss right on the street. And I'm like, wow, that would wake a lot of people up. I wouldn't recommend that to people to do, but it's just, man. and the not being so predictable. This has got to be like is this like the building block for crazy wisdom and like stepping outside of normal social conventions?
Well, outside.
Yeah, like that first line, he opens up, somebody does something nice for you and you give him this champagne in return. But Atisha, when he was going to Tibet, he brought his pain in the ass T-boy with him to because like, oh, I gotta work with difficult people, and that's not predictable at all.
And then we're supposed to thank those people that wake us up, right? Be grateful to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because they show us, where we're stuck, or what's outside of what's okay for us. So.
Ian, you had your hand up, and then Trip, and then Peter. You're muted. You're muted, Ian. We'll wait until you can unmute.
It looks like you can't.
Okay. So, Peter.
Yeah. There's many more stories like the one on the movie line that reminds me of. But another thing that I thought about, if I'm remembering correctly, is that Trungpa Rinpoche used to talk a lot about the things that we keep in our closets. Am I correct about that, John? Yeah, he used to quite a bit about our little things that we keep there that we don't want anybody to know about, and so on. And I kind of latched on that, started thinking about that, about the closets. And the closets, to me, in a way, represent everything in the closet represents one of these things, and what we have done in the clothes that we've written, woven, that have represented those things, and we hoard them. Also, we keep a lot of things, and all of this thing. What I'm trying to say, for me, it's like these secret, I've let these secret things, because practically every single one of these I can relate to, I can identify, and that I've kind of held away, and this is washing the stuff. It's cleaning up. It's an opportunity to clean up and to get rid of all of those bad habits that we have, which is what I think that these refer to. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I can identify with practically every single one of them. And those are the things that I've been keeping in my closet, really, because I haven't wanted to, people to know about it. And I haven't wanted myself to really be. So it's been a journey of incredible opportunity for truth and for letting go. And I find it happening with some of them, saying to people to things that I never would have. And gradually things falling apart in the best way, certainly with a certain amount of embarrassment, I would say, because that's the truth of the situation. You see that, I don't think we anymore we're going to put it back in the closet, are we? We've all are coming out of the closet. Thank you.
Ian.
Thank you very much, John. Yeah, no, I'm on an iPhone, so it's not working as well. So much has been said that, it's wonderful that when they talk about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy in psychology, I think that they realize that it goes back to Buddhism 2,000 years ago, has already been spoken about 2,600 years ago. But I think it was Sarah was talking about, there's so many of these that touch you. Like for me, it was every way but which. In other words, you're caught out in every way. And just comment very briefly on don't wait in ambush. There's a phrase that people may have heard it. There's no road that doesn't have a turning. So I don't know if it's particularly Irish, but when something's done to them, they say there's no road that doesn't have a turning. In other words, they'll wait on the corner till the road turns and get the person. But from a CBT point of view, and also on this, that the harm it does to somebody holding a grudge for so long must be quite damaging to them. But what I want to just speak very briefly on is don't transfer the ox's load to the cow. I've read many books on management, and really the Me Too movement should own this one in a way, because management should include, that people they're working with, their subordinates don't have the power that they do, and consequently, you should be very, very conscious of that. I'll tell on myself now. I came out of, I have the great honor of training assistants, and sometimes I can have 12 assistants at a meeting. And I went, having done a seminar with 12 assistants, I went on to a meeting in Amnesty International that same evening, and there were 12 people in the group. I was shocked that they weren't agreeing with me in the same way as my assistants had agreed with me in the afternoon. Unfortunately, this was a dozen years ago, but I've always remembered that. I thought, they're all agreeing here, no matter how much I prompt them to speak their minds, they don't. But if they were in the outside world at the meeting of Amnesty International, they would put me in my place very quickly. So I've always remembered that I'd taken it for granted, that my views were accepted unanimously by my assistants. And then I learned, wow, in the outside world, it doesn't happen. And it helps with my wife as well. I come back from a seminar with my assistants, and then see my wife and she disagrees immediately with something I say. It's a good learning experience, but it should be more in management textbooks, I think. And certainly the Me Too movement has shown it up as well. Thank you for unmuting me. You can mute me again.
Trip, you had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, this is a great chapter, and I've had a week that has kind of borne out several things about this chapter. One is the sequencing of the slogans, and I felt like this chapter began with a kind of taking a new, fresh look at the vows, the idea of patience, kind of laying the foundation to put these slogans to work at work. I've been building up tension around one of our comments based on kind of not being lined up on what the deliverables were and expectations. And I felt that I was building up all of these really bad attitudes that were captured very well in these slogans. To the point where I found that I was becoming incredibly closed down, and I bought the Pema compassion cards, which, by the way, is the right set to buy from her foundation. There's another set of cards that does not have the explanation on the back. It's better to have the explanation on the back. But putting that aside, so I found myself getting really wound up. And I took to heart the slogans. I would pick a card out, and I was reading the work, and I kind of reached this point where I decided I really need to speak truthfully and reset the relationship. It just occurred to me, listening to everybody sharing this experience, that what these slogans seem to be doing for me is sooner or later triggering compassion. I was not able to have, whether it be compassion towards myself for being a jerk, which is much easier to get through when you're compassionate with yourself, but also triggering passion in my view of this other person, and realizing the concept of a charitable read, a compassionate read of somebody, and a compassionate read of a situation, how actionable it becomes when you start working with these slogans, just letting them kind of sink in and contemplating them, and then having an opportunity to actually use them. And in each time where I think these slogans have come into play, ultimately, they made a difference when I reached that point of compassion. I don't know a way to put it. And it feels like they're incredibly effective. Like Ian, to your point, they're incredibly effective management tools and people relationship tools, whether personally or in business. So yeah, I really, each time you read them, each time I see them, they may not sink in super heavy, but after a while, and they just kind of sink in and become very useful. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Don, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick share. If I heard Peter's comment correctly, I really appreciated it. Like the idea that it's like we have these cards. It's like the opposite of the cards that are on the slogans, right? And that's like our cards that we deal every day, like holding a grudge, being impatient. And we have this hand that we're always like dealing. And I just like that analogy of considering like maybe using a different set of cards or something. It kind of reminds me of people in recovery circles might be familiar with kind of a game that's sort of a spoof they play on 12 steps. Like on step 10, it's like, instead of continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, would be like continue to take others' inventory, and when we see that they were wrong, made them promptly admit it. And I don't know, it just kind of makes it sort of fun to like play with this idea of like dealing out using different cards than the ones that we use. Anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a great idea. If you could come up with a set of reverse Tong Len cards and reverse Lojong cards. That'd be funny. Well, maybe we should end. Anybody else have something that they'd like to say before we close? No? Well, perhaps we'll see you in tomorrow at the discussion group. And Sarah, I'll put the chants up and we'll close with the closing chant.
We will close with a prayer for peace and then by dedicating the merit earned by our practice tonight for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the blessings of enlightened and compassionate ones, by the power of my positive actions of 3 times, and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world, and may the earth and all who live on this earth enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thanks,
everybody.
Barry.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Thank you,
night.
everyone. Thanks, Barry.
Thank
You
you.
all.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you all
Thank
so
you,
much.
John. Thank you, Barry.
See you tomorrow.